Down on the 8, in trouble. Got a block behind him. Gonna throw and a run, complete to the 25, to the 30. Lindsey's got 35, 40. Lindsey's got 45, 50, 45, 40. Run, Lindsey, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Lindsey stop. Lindsey stop. Lindsey stop.
Everyone, good evening. We're live on Dogs Down South. It is a Thursday night. Hope you guys are doing well. We are here, myself, and I got Adam Fisher. What's up, Fish? How are you, man?
What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. How's your day going?
Good. Can't complain.
It was 92 degrees today in Tampa, man.
Wow.
The Tampa area. And part of me likes it because, summer's here. I don't know about you guys. Fish, I've been looking on your Facebook page and seeing, obviously, your kiddos, man, graduating and moving up in school. So school's coming to an end. That's a good thing. We don't have to pack lunches and all that stuff. But that just means,
Very
man,
true.
the summer heat's here, man. So it's crazy. It's crazy. But it's a great chipper evening to talk college football, Dogs Down South. Welcome, everyone. If you have not already done so, make sure you go over to our YouTube page, Dogs Down South. Drop a like and a follow, trying to get to 1,000 followers over there. We're excited about YouTube hopefully being our main platform as we get into the college football season, where we are 100 days to the day until Georgia steps on the field to play Clemson. And I can just tell you, man, 100 days seems like an eternity right now because it just feels like it's supposed to be around the corner, right, Fish?
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Definitely feels like it.
It's going to fly by.
I guess, man. I mean, we're trying our best, man, to keep some content here from week to week and to keep the momentum going. We're going to do so.
Right.
We'll definitely start heavy into July with weekly SEC previews. We'll look in depth at every SEC team and what they're bringing to the table, what to look forward to about them, how we think they'll do this year. We're going to bring on some guests, hopefully that represent their team, whether it be Arkansas, Auburn, Alabama, Florida. Oh, man. If I find some of these fans, I just got to hope that they're the good ones. But we'll see how that goes. But, man, we're going to hop right in, Fish, if you want to. Portal, man. Portal. What's hot news? So, Portal ain't really hot news because spring has ended. The SEC, I think, had one of the best ways they could do the portal in the spring, and that say, hey, look, you can go in the portal, but you got to get out of the SEC, right, Fish? So them shutting it down and saying you cannot go from SEC to SEC team kind of kept it a little bit quiet, in my opinion. But the quietness only made it so far, right? Because and as you texted me and kind of plugged this part of the show tonight, Mr. Dabo Swinney from Clemson, and this is relevant. Why? Because Georgia plays Clemson in 100 days. So tell me a little bit before we play this video and dig in, Fish. You watched the entire video with Dabo Swinney about the portal. What jumped out to you about Dabo and his video talking about the portal and why they don't take any players from the portal?
Man, it was so easy to be a Dabo fan a few years ago. Remember when they were, it was Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, those were the three big dogs, and just now lately, I don't know why he's just so anti everything lately. Like he's always got an opinion. He's always got something to say. And I don't know what he was thinking during this interview, saying what he was saying.
Right.
And I think it's going to have a big impact, on his recruiting. Because who's going to want to go there when he talks about kids like that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good look. Now, maybe off camera, like at dinner with a booster or something. Sure. Say it. Doesn't matter. Your opinion's your opinion and you have a right to it. But Lord have mercy. Not during an interview. I mean, I just think that was dumb. I think that was a bad look.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of coaches who've made some like what I would call portal mistakes in what they've said, but this one was kind of wow, man. Because well, let's do this. Let's let everybody listen to what Dabo said. So we're going to bring Dabo in. I'm going to add him to the stage here. Here he is, and he was talking on Sirius XM. So let's listen to the entire video, and then we'll go back and we'll break it down a little bit. Here's Dabo Swinney.
Rarely do we have a starter leave Clemson. So, you've got the majority of the guys. They're guys that are in the portal because they want to have a chance to go start somewhere. Mm-hmm. They're not playing where they are. They're not good enough to come in and play for us. And so we'd rather take a good high school player as long as we can get them, and which we do, and you develop them. That's the first type. The second type of guy that goes in the portal is he's only going in the portal as a formality because the deal's already been done. Mm-hmm. He knows where he's going before he ever goes in the portal. So we're not getting that guy. Mm-hmm. And then the third type of guy is going in the portal just to see what he can get. And we're never going to win that.
So
the EA Sports College Football 25 trailer dropped a few days ago.
Please forgive me too, because I'm trying to learn how to work with these
Sorry,
videos.
That's an awesome trailer. That's an awesome
there it is. It's right in the NCAA 25, right? So
yes,
so there's Dabo, right? So he's talking about his comments are like basically saying that every player he has on his team is better than every player that's in the portal, right? So, and he's saying that, if his players go in the portal, it's because he has the best players in the country and they're looking for playing time because they're not going to get any playing time at Clemson. And he's also saying that every person that leaves Clemson, it's a done deal, which is illegal, right? Because they've been talking to him outside of, I don't know if it's illegal because when the portal window's open, I guess per se, I don't know. I guess when the portal window's open, but he's saying it's a done deal. He's saying that Clemson never has a chance.
There's communication before anything's public.
Yeah. But he's also saying that he doesn't like, and my biggest thing with the portal and where I think teams don't really have to go grab players sometimes is I don't think that the portal is a necessity every single year. Now, maybe if you want to go pluck, a great player to fill a void here or there, I get it. I don't think you can continue to use the portal like Lane Kiffin does, where it's like I have to rely on building my entire team around the portal every year. I don't think that's something that can, stay around and be.
I don't know how sustainable that is.
Right. But what Dabo's saying is that every single player that he recruits, they're going to develop, and that's going to be what they do as far. And it's not a bad thing to say. But I think in this day and age, and not knowing how far the portal is going to go and how, this NIL stuff is going to change or not change, I just don't know if you go on SiriusXM with everybody listening, all their ears listening, and go, basically, you're either here at Clemson from high school or you're never at Clemson. I mean, how many players actually look and go, I would love to go to Clemson if they just had 2 great years at, I don't know, Toledo or Utah, something like that.
State.
Right. That's one level of it, but also look at the flip side of it. So you're telling me that, and I just want to name just 2 or 3 really solid names that came out of the portal. You're telling me that Caleb Downs can't add anything to Clemson's roster? I mean, what would you think about? You think Caleb Downs is one of, if not, where do you think he ranks in secondary in safeties this year? Like, where do you think he ranks?
Top 3 or 4. Easy.
Top 3 or 4. Who's the top 3 safeties this year? I mean, I got 2 in my mind right now. I'm thinking him, Malachi Starks. Like, who's the third? I don't know the kid's
really?
name.
It's hard to get it like that. It's hard to come up with the name. I mean, those 2 are at the top. They're in a league of their own, I believe. Caleb and Malachi. I think they're going to be the 2 best safeties in the nation this year, easy.
Well, let's just see.
I don't know, man. But I think Dabo sounds a little hurt. Like his feelings are hurt a little bit, because what if none of these guys wanted to go to Clemson? Maybe I know he might not have been fishing, but he might not have been getting any offers either. I mean, Clemson's it's falling back down to be a middle tier school right now. They're not at the top. They're not even in the top 10 top programs right now in the country, I believe. I mean, I firmly believe that. And, what has Clemson done lately?
Right.
Where were they at last year? Where were they at the year before last?
Right.
I mean, they're on a trend. And these kids know that. These kids see that. And then they hear Dabo say what he says, which there's nothing wrong with having these feelings. But, man, I'm telling you, some of them don't need to be public.
Yeah. That's the kicker. It's like, is it a public thing? I mean, I get it. Clemson knows, their players know where they stand. I get having that relationship, that culture of, hey, when you come to play at Clemson, you're coming into a family, you're going to be developed. But when you go out there and you say that stuff, and maybe it's reverse psychology, but still, we all know it doesn't work like that. I mean, when you look at Georgia and the team that they're going to field here in 100 days, I mean, look at the team. Go back, Fish, and talk to me about the 16 players that left Georgia this past year that were portal players. I mean, talk to me about the fact of what the team would look like if those 16 players were on the roster. I mean, Georgia's already favored. Them and Ohio State are favored to win the national championship with the highest odds. But you give the Xavier Sories and guys back to the roster, and Georgia's an easy number one selection, and they're easy in a lot of people's polls right now. So that could be said for any team, right?
Sure.
I just think at the end of the day, Dabo, and I don't want to talk too much about Dabo because we got to face him soon. I don't know, I've seen.
Not let him win.
Yeah, no. But I mean, I think I will tell you, Dabo's been quiet for long enough. It doesn't scare me, but Dabo is not. He's not. He's still a great coach. He's still a great motivator. He's still a great mentor of men. So he's still got a lot going for him. I just got to see this team that he's got that doesn't need any portal players. And the only thing I can think to myself, and this will kind of wrap up this section, is the only thing I can think to myself is I need to really go catch this Clemson spring game and see all these 5-star players that are better than. I mean, I'm just going to name a few. I mean, Walter Nolan was an incredible pickup in the portal. Isaiah Bond was an incredible pickup in the portal. Caleb Downs, incredible pickup in the portal. Trevor Etienne. I mean,
and he's also saying, he couldn't use a Trevor Etienne or a Colby Young. Those guys. We don't need them. So I mean, who does he have? Jerry Rice and Emmitt Smith are about to line up in the backfield for Clemson. I mean, who does he have that's better than those guys? Those guys are great. The proof's in the pudding. They did it last year. Yeah. They made a name for themselves last year, and they wanted to go somewhere and win. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a trend. That's where football is going. And, that's why the NCAA and all them are working on regulations and stuff like that. They're going to have to police it somehow because right now it's just anarchy.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can go wherever you want, whenever you want.
Yeah. And I'm very interested in, believe me, I don't want to get to this part too soon because that means the off season is already here again. So we don't want to talk about where the portal's going, but obviously it will be a hot topic next year in the off season to see if they're going to make some changes. And I'm sure we'll start hearing some news about that, because they're talking about moving recruiting stuff up in December to create better, coaching culture throughout the league. I mean, coaches right now, it's going to be hard to retain college coaches when they're having to work 365 days out of the year. I just can't see. You look at a Todd Monken, who is an incredible mind, incredible offensive mind. And the only reason, and I love Bobo, don't get me wrong, I think he did an incredible job last year. I think he's going to do some even better things this year as far as getting playmakers, a ton of them, the ball. But I think you look at Monken, and the only reason Monken goes to the Baltimore Ravens is because of the grueling, college schedule and the recruiting and working. Monken's, pushing his mid-60s. He wants and desperately needs probably that time to where he's. You got to think about it. In the NFL, man. You're a 4 or 5 month guy, and Out of that, man, you're cruising, you're sailing, you know.
Yeah. Relaxing, chilling.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can't say that Mike Bobo has been chilling for the entire season. I mean, when the football season ended, then early signing, then a small Christmas break, and then it was prep for recruiting visits to get the 2025 classes going, make sure we're shutting the door on the 2024 classes. Then we get into spring ball, and then after spring ball, we get the spring portal open again, and after spring portal closes, you got a sliver of time to just enjoy some family time before it kicks into summer camp, and we all know where that goes. And so I think the college football coaching, the coaching job requirements are brutal right now, and they're not even getting paid. They're not getting paid as much as NFL assistants, and they're doing more work. So far be it from me, but I would say that, you call me today, man. I'm ready to be the OC for Georgia, man. I don't know if I'm the right candidate, but give me that schedule.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe not. But that remains to be seen. That's neither here nor there. But yes, right. I would love, dude. I would lead. I would jump and just
right.
Wife and kids, let's roll.
Take my whole NCAA 25 playbook from 10 years ago, because we hadn't seen this year's yet and played it. But if they were going off my NCAA skills and the playbook that I use for there, I'd take that whole thing to Athens, and I hope those plays can get me to the promised land.
Yes, sir.
But anyways,
awesome.
Let's move on, man. Opening weekend kickoff times revealed. Exciting. 100 days, and opening kickoff times have been revealed for week 0, week 1. We're going to land the plane on Georgia and Clemson, but got a little graphic here. So week 0, Saturday, August 24th, noon in Ireland. Florida State, Georgia Tech. That's interesting, Ireland. I don't know what time that game's going to start, but I can highly suggest that I'm not going to be watching it.
That's a noon game.
Noon where? In Ireland? What time is it here? I don't know what Ireland time is, bro.
What is noon in Ireland? I have no idea.
Right. I'll tell you this. I mean, you can have a beer at any time in America, and it'd be noon in Ireland. So
there you go. That was hilarious.
Florida A&M, Norfolk State. I know we're just dying to get to that one. Then Thursday, got a lead up, man. Thursday, August 29th is officially week 1. North Dakota State at Colorado. We see prime time and Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders taking on North Dakota State. That might be one of the only hand-me games they have all year, so make sure you tune in for that one. Then Friday, August 30th, they got Temple going to Oklahoma. Get to see Oklahoma. Man, I just hope that there's not 107 points scored in that game by Oklahoma, because that offense is going to be potent. And then we get a little teaser of a really good game, in my opinion. Stanford trying to make their way back on the right path. TCU once again too, still recovering from some hits from 2 years ago, from when they were very, very talented. And then I think TCU has slowly become if you do well at this school, you're going to be the next best player at this school, because they're going to the portal.
Yeah.
And we're going to skip that game. That's Georgia Clemson. We're going to talk about it at the end. But you got August 31st, a 3:30 game on August 31st, which is that first Saturday of week 1. ABC, now the new CBS 3:30 game. But I think what you're seeing too is and I can't really. I'm trying to make this out, and we can talk about it. But I think we're shifting gears on ABC to the primetime game actually still being now being at 7:30. I think the primetime game on CBS used to be the 3:30 game, and now they're shifting it to the 7:30 game, which is interesting, because I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I don't know about you, but I just think that any stadium, and we're going to talk about stadium atmospheres to play in to end the show tonight, but I think stadiums at night are interesting, and they're interesting. The fans want to they want to tailgate all day, and they want to go and they want to play a night game for primetime games. And that's why I like this move by ABC. So you get Miami and Florida at 3:30 on ABC, and also Colorado State and Texas on ESPN. Western Kentucky is the 7:00 game on ESPN versus Alabama. Caleb DeBoer's initiation into the SEC with good old Western Kentucky.
Tell me why that's a 7:00 game and not a 12:00 game.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I have the only thing I can tell you is it foreshadows the big game that game day has chosen, which is Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Notre Dame and Texas A&M is game day will be there. That is the big game of that week, and then it's a big weekend, so you move into a Sunday game, which is in Las Vegas, Sunday at 7:30, USC at LSU, and then Monday. Crazy enough, man, Florida State starts week 0 and they end week 1, which is Monday, Boston College at Florida State. So let's hop in here real quick. So the noon kickoff, Clemson at Georgia. Why do you think we were slotted there? You think right there? I know me personally, I'm thinking that they're thinking Georgia's going to be in a lot of primetime ABC games. They are, 2 weeks later, they're the primetime game on ABC playing Kentucky. So, I mean, what do you think about that time slot?
I mean, actually, as a Georgia fan, I am extra used to it. Getting the snub and getting the 12:00 kick. I just am.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you win 2 or 3 natties in a row. It's 12:00. 12:00. Bama is going to be the prime time because they must have the higher ratings or whatever. And then time zones, I'm sure, factored into it too. Like the the A&M Notre Dame game, like that that can't kick at 12 or 3:30.
Right.
That would be super early. I don't know. Florida State, Boston College, Monday night. That would have been a perfect time for a Georgia Clemson game. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but then we would have had to wait 102 days, and so
I guess, yeah. I mean, plus Georgia gets to travel 90 miles to play their game.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of fair, That.
Yeah. I think it had a lot to do with I think you're right on track. I think it had a lot to do with the timing of that game. I mean, you got to think if it's a 12:00 game, technically Kyle Field, that's an 11:00 game, and so right on Central Time. And they're thinking Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Also, you got to look and you got to think that Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, we're going to see a lot of Tennessee, Georgia.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of 7:30 games. Now, some people are saying, and I'm not buying into this, but they're saying, Ted, maybe they're looking at that Georgia Clemson game going, it's a 12:00 game because, yes, on paper it looks great, but it's not going to be close. And so I'm sure we'll have I'm sure we'll have plenty of we're going to break that game down plenty of days before it happens and talk about keys to that victory and what Clemson brings to the table. But just from looking out at it, but also what I think you got to think of too, Fish, is with the two primetime games. I think the 12:00 games, if you look, the noon slated games there's nobody else slated at noon. As far as prime time that day, it's just us. So it kind of carves out the most eyes. The most eyes are going to be going to that game. In that 7:30 game, you're going to battle with Alabama fans watching that. You're going to battle a little bit with, Texas, and I don't know, that game will be over by then. But I think some people were thinking maybe if you look at it, the 12:00 game has the most eyes on it. So you may still have a little bit of the game day crew. Dipping. I mean, they're going to be doing a lot of. I think there'll be a lot of stuff at game day centered around that game.
Where's Nation going to be that day?
Maybe there. I know that if it's big enough, they'll both go. I mean, they've done it before. Nation's been at Georgia, Tennessee, the same time. Game day's been there before 2 years ago. So I think you could see Nation there, and you could possibly see a lot of Georgia Clemson on game day. Just from just because they're there at that game doesn't mean that the majority of the content is going to be based around Notre Dame and Texas A&M. So we shall see. But excited, man. I'll tell you the games that jump out to me right off the bat, and it kind of leads into this topic. So you look at that 3:30 kick on Saturday, right after Georgia and Clemson plays. You got Miami going to the Swamp. Lot to play for in that game, right? So you got Florida, who is, you look and you go, man, if Florida loses that game, like how many winnable games is on Billy Napier and Florida's schedule this year, and what kind of momentum are they going to ride coming out of that game if they lose it / win it? But also, when you look at Miami, Miami's slowly but surely gotten some big names in the portal this year, and they've put together what I would think would be, this guy's riding really low radar, but Mario Cristobal has an extremely expensive buyout. But this is a year that they're expecting him to win at Miami. I mean, they went out and got Cam Ward. They went out just recently and landed Tyler Barron from Tennessee, talented edge rusher from Tennessee, just literally, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. So they slowly but surely quietly put together a pretty decent team. They really went after Ellis Robinson hard, really, really hard. So this is one of those games where you look and you go, if Florida loses this game, does it just go downhill from there? But what I do want to talk about this game's Fish is Jaden Rashada, which is the quarterback that Georgia did pluck out of the portal in the spring, the one lone player that they went and got in the spring. But a lot of the controversy in the past 48 hours in the news is that Rashada is suing not just the University of Florida, but he is personally suing Billy Napier and the NIL guy that basically the person who was fronting the money as far as NIL, the collective, was concerned, for his $13.85 million that he didn't get. And there is some places reporting, before I give this to you, that this could be a problem for Billy Napier. So much to say, they're saying that if enough comes out about this and enough of the truth comes out, that he might be a person of interest to not even be the head football coach at the University of Florida when they play Miami. What's your thoughts on all this?
I'm dumbfounded. That's crazy, because you hit me out of left field with that earlier, and I still haven't wrapped my head around it yet, because that's crazy. It must have been bad, and apparently there are some rules,
Right.
Like, it's not just a lawless, land of do whatever you want to do, I don't know, man. I can't believe it. I mean, best of luck to Billy, for somebody who I think was already on the hot seat coming into this year. So, I mean, if it's going to damage the university's reputation or credibility in any way, I think they might be pretty quick to pull the trigger. But again, all I've heard is what you're telling me, so I haven't actually read the article yet, but I am going to as soon as we're done.
Yeah, and that was reported by cousin Shane and from that SEC podcast. That's not just that SEC podcast; that's the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
But pretty credible guy. I mean, he goes on Feinbaum a lot. They cover the entire SEC, and this is obviously. This is interesting even more because I would say if you have a reason, I don't know if maybe Florida holds this in their back pocket, because if Napier comes out, really just loses, the ship in the first 5 games, we all know what the last 7 to 8 look like. But if we turn up and lose some of those, first 3 or 4 or 5 games, maybe it's a little fuel to the fire to get him along his way a little quicker with that whole deal. So I don't know how that's all going to play out. I don't know if it's obviously a huge distraction. I'm even wondering how that affects Georgia on this end. As far as Kirby, we all know Kirby doesn't like those distractions. He likes to sweep that stuff under the rug, not to get rid of it, to not think about it. I think when you look at if Jaden Rashada really was done wrong, he's due his money. I mean, anything he was done and signed, I think it would be the same thing with the players, right? I think this is a sidebar. I think even Marvin Harrison Jr. is going through a little bit of a thing with Fanatics right now, right? Apparently signed some NIL stuff, then moved on to the league and didn't do some appearances and autograph signings and jersey signings that he was paid $1 million for. So he could find himself in some hot water as well. So Fish, I will tell you that there are rules, and we are strictly finding out that the loopholes are not being adhered to, and NIL is coming for their money in some ways. So
what happens, real quick? What happens if Big Show Billy does get fired in the offseason, do his players get a window to transfer?
Yes. So that is definitely, I mean, no matter what, you get that 30-day window. And it is a little bit different during the season. I have not seen it happen during the season. That is it's very interesting just because.
So what if it happens August 1st, August 2nd?
He gets a
Billy
window. He
Napier
gets a window.
fired from Florida.
He gets a window.
Okay.
The only thing about that is you wonder if some of these players are like, you wonder if some of these teams are kind of, now they are pulling the Dabo Swinney where they're like, okay, we're set. I don't know if we can do anything culture wise with a player to come in and be
Not
like,
in a week or two,
yeah, can you be an asset to the team? Can you be a plug and play guy and be a good locker room guy? You don't really have a rapport with the team. NFL is a little bit different, right? You can get traded on week 3 and be playing. I mean, dude, baseball's even worse. Like, you can be. I've seen in baseball, man, where guy hits a double and he's standing on second base, and the pitching coach will come out, pull him out of the game, and go, "Hey, man, you've been traded to the Astros," and like, he's done, bro. Like, he's done for the night. He does not play the minute that it's signed. They don't play another second for that team, and the next day they're in the starting lineup for whoever they sign with. So baseball's definitely weird, but I don't know what that looks like. It's a very good question. I don't know what it looks like to a T, but I do know they get a window of opportunity.
Gotcha.
No matter how it kind of pans out. But yeah, man, interesting kickoff times. Let's do some mailbag real quick. Couple mailbag questions. Any viewers who are interested in having your question read on the mailbag can go to dogsdownsouth@gmail.com. Send your questions there. Or if you want to just drop them in the chat at a later time, we go back and we look at the chat. And so we will add it to the mailbag questions and answer it. But first question out of the box tonight, Fish, is do you think Georgia and Alabama is SEC's is the new SEC rivalry? Like, is it the new top rivalry in the SEC? I know before we hopped on, we talked a little bit about this. First off, before we even answer that question, like, who are I guess what we'd say, who would be, let's go back and forth. Who do we think are the prime time rivalries that would need to be put into a voting situation? Like, the first one to me that comes to mind, even though the result has not always been competitive in the past 3-4 years, is the Iron Bowl, right? So Alabama and Auburn, I think that one could be up there. Who else do you think garners some votes for best rivalry in the SEC?
Oh, Georgia, Florida.
Florida. Okay.
And that's not biased. That's just fact. Tennessee, Alabama. It's not a bad rivalry.
Definitely more relevant in the past 2-3 years.
Yeah. Higher profile, though. I mean, because there are a lot of good rivalries in the SEC. I mean, you could just sit here and talk about them for days. But the higher profile, Georgia, Bama is probably working its way to be. I mean, when you're playing for national championships, we played for 2 national championships, them 2 national championships in the past, 4 years, 5 years, and then an SEC championship, and that's going to be a thing. If DeBoer is as good as advertised, he's going to keep Bama at the top. We're going to play them a lot more often in higher profile games. I believe so.
Yeah, and I think you could add Tennessee, Florida to that, man. And I'm saying that more from the fact of, if there's one team that Tennessee has a hard time with every year, it's Florida. No matter where they play them, whether they play them at home, whether they play them in the swamp. I think Georgia, Florida is a good one. I think some of the ones that come to fruition to me, or what's coming down the line, is I think Texas A&M and Texas will be an incredible rivalry to add to Texas, and then you got Texas, Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry. So I mean, those are the ones that are kind of going. Yeah, those are kind of the ones going up against the Georgia Alabama thing. But the question is in the last 5 years, has this become the biggest rivalry in the SEC? Is Georgia Alabama the rivalry that everyone talks about? And remember, when you look at, let's do this. I'll name one outside of there that I think, out of the ones we threw out there, could give it competition, and you give the other one. For me, I think when we're looking at in the past 5 years, Texas and Oklahoma could definitely be up there, but you got to throw them out because we don't know yet. They were a great rivalry in the Big 12, but we don't know if they're a great rivalry in the SEC. We don't know what that recruiting footprint looks like. But I would say outside of for me, outside of Georgia, Alabama, it definitely has been the Iron Bowl. Maybe I just want to see the outcome a little bit different. I want to see the teams maybe play a little closer for a rivalry game. But you can't really say that with Georgia, Alabama either, because Georgia, Alabama's only met on, this will be the first year in 4 or 5 years that they've met on the field in a regular season game. So they've met in the SEC championship a lot, or the national championship a lot. So for me, it's the Iron Bowl, regardless of the outcome. But who do you got in there that you think SEC wise could just be the one that you go, well, this could kind of trump it?
No. The Iron Bowl is always, whenever it's in Auburn, it is definitely must-see TV. Things always seem to happen. That's one of my favorite personal. Plus, my wife is an Auburn fan, so I pay extra attention to it. And look, just last year, last play of the game, it's in Auburn. More magic. Right. It just seems to be such a a magical place for crazy things to happen. Right. Nothing you expect is going to happen, and that's what I think makes a really good rivalry. Georgia, Florida hasn't been a really good game the past 5 years. Tennessee, Bama is always a good one. Ole Miss, Mississippi State is always fun to watch.
Right.
But they're not quite high profile, if you're talking about the teams involved. But Lane is slowly working his team up into there. But Mississippi State's kind of at a standstill right now, So
yeah.
I don't know, man. Iron Bowl, Georgia, Bama. Those are definitely the top two in my opinion. Just because Texas, Oklahoma, Red River rivalry, that's new. That's now SEC, but it's new. We haven't seen it yet. 5 years later, ask me that question again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I to a certain extent, I would say that I think Georgia, Alabama is just a relevant thing because they've been on top of the SEC. Yeah. If it hadn't been Alabama, it's been Georgia. If it hadn't been Georgia, It's been Alabama. If you look at Auburn and Alabama last year, if Isaiah Bond doesn't catch that ball in the corner, Alabama doesn't even play in the SEC championship. Who knows the outcome of Georgia may three-peat, right?
Three-peat.
Yeah. So I think you definitely look at that as a different ball game, and I think that, and this is just me playing a little bit of personal different. I think Georgia gives Michigan a different game than Washington gives Michigan in that game. But woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? But I think the two games that definitely give it a huge haul. And I would say LSU and Alabama could fit in there somewhere. They've gone at it pretty head to head. Even though, Saban's been that guy to be like, he's been stingy with the wins, man, no matter what rivalry game. I'm sure Kiffin's still kicking himself because he never had the opportunity to beat Saban, and Saban didn't give it to him. So definitely interesting. Definitely
like
interesting.
Charles Barkley never went in a ring in the NBA.
Right.
You never get to beat Saban, your mentor, no matter how much you want to and how hard you try. And your peers are doing the same thing. They're beating him. Not many, but Lane, big fat goose egg.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising, man. And I'm sure it eats at him because Lane, he had his opportunities, and I feel like every time Ole Miss played Alabama, Ole Miss just didn't show up. There was some games where I felt like Alabama let them hang around. They let them do some things that is not typical Alabama. And I don't know. I know he's kicking himself because at the end of the day, he never got that opportunity. And so moving on. So question number 2, which team is not being talked about enough coming into 2024? And this one for me, I was very interested to hear how on 3 talked about this topic about who's not being talked about enough. You want me to start this one, Fish, or you want to take this one?
You can go ahead. I got 2 teams in mind.
Okay. So I think a team that's not being talked about enough this year For me, this is my long shot. I think I have two, but one that I think other people are thinking about, and there's one that I think nobody's thinking about. I don't think there's enough people talking about Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is going to win some games. I think Texas A&M is going to beat Notre Dame. I'm just going out there and I'm going to tell you, I like Mike Elko. I like Connor Weigman. I like some of the players they've retained. I like the defensive line. They've gotten some people out of there that needed to get out of there. I know everybody can say, well, they lost one of their best wide receivers. They lost their best defensive tackle. They weren't the best wide receiver and defensive tackle and safety for their locker room, from what I understand. And that's what Mike Elko is about. Go ahead.
Is that game in Aggie land or is it neutral site?
Notre Dame and Texas A&M is in Kyle Field. So it is in Texas. It is at Texas A&M. And for me, like Mike, man, Mike Elko did a lot with a little at Duke. And he's always done a lot with a little. And Mike Elko is Texas A&M alumni. So I think Mike Elko was a great pick. So they're not being talked about enough, in my opinion. And then the ideal pick for me that's not being talked about enough is Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is a team that is going to be incredibly good this year. I want to see how they mesh. I want to see how this portal. It's hard. It's hard to get that locker room to go the same direction. Because the question you can ask yourself is, did you get too many individual players and you don't have a team? That's the one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about. What do you got, Fish? Who do you think is not being talked about enough?
Kentucky, for one. I think their defense is going to be really, really, really good this year. Pops is going to be, calling the defensive plays. He's going to be the quarterback. And then they got a defensive lineman, and oh my God, I was listening to a radio show, and they were talking about him, and then I went and I looked at him and saw some of his highlights, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. But this man is a monster. He's big, he's quick, he's strong. Reminds me a lot of Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. He's quick, but he's got a little more size. Because Jalen was kind of not undersized, but I guess a little short, not your prototypical big, tall, towering, D lineman, but, could get up underneath some of the taller offensive linemen, and he was quick enough and strong enough to power under. And then I've always been a huge Brock Vandagriff fan. I love that guy, and I really wish that he could have, worked out here. I wish, things would have fallen into place and he would have gotten a shot. I think he's going to be great at Kentucky. I think they're going to be as good as he carries them. They're going to go as far as he can carry them.
Yeah.
And I think they have potential to be great. Not great. Sorry, that's a long shot. But good, very good. I don't think they're going to make the playoff good, but I think they're going to shock a lot of people. Like, they're always going to be on upset alert, whoever they're playing.
Well,
I think there's always going to be a chance.
I mean, they obviously ABC and sports writers are thinking Kentucky has an interesting dichotomy because, they get the primetime game week 3 in Kentucky, which is going to be a really good game. Georgia goes on the road to Kentucky, which, if you look at it from Georgia's perspective, I mean, it's a no-brainer for Georgia that this is a win, because if this is a hard-fought battle for game 3 of the year, then you got to go to Texas and to Alabama. So this is definitely the start of a really incredible road. And Oxford, yeah. So this is the start of an incredible road year. So Kentucky kicks it off, and Ole Miss closes, the door on. I think those are your 4 games. I think Tennessee's going to be tough at home. I think Clemson will play it tough. But I think the 4 games you got to look at are Kentucky on the road, just because it's the first road game of the year, right? I don't know if you can consider that neutral site game. Georgia's made Mercedes-Benz their, home away from home type thing. Yeah, so I think Kentucky's atmosphere will be a little bit more pressing. I think Kentucky will have a little bit of, like you said, Pop's in there. Vandagriff's coming back to play Georgia, at home. And so I think it creates a really good setup for ABC. So kudos to them for putting them as the primetime game that week. But also for Kentucky, you'll know a lot about Kentucky because the week before that, is South Carolina, Kentucky, and I'm predicting Kentucky to go into South Carolina and win. But if they don't, this game looks different. This game looks way different if they don't. And maybe for what I would say was maybe it's even worse, Fish, if they don't, because now they're like, all right, we can't lose many more if every team, regardless of what they're going to do this year, if their goal is to go to the college football playoff, and that is a playoff that is bigger and more teams than ever. There's more chances to get in this year. They got to be thinking, well, if I lose to South Carolina, I definitely can't come home and lose to Georgia, because I would think back-to-back losses right there, and you still haven't played Tennessee, you still haven't played Alabama. I think Kentucky can pretty much wrap up their. They're just playing for a bowl season after that.
Back-to-back losses definitely takes you out of the hunt, I believe.
Yeah, and I think it's just a little bit of a thing where that people are looking and going, okay, yeah, you only have 3 losses, because there is question if a 3-loss team can get in this year, and I think there's possibility that they can. But I also think that when you look at those back-to-back losses, one being on the road, one being at home, and especially the South Carolina loss, I don't really expect South Carolina to be more than a 5-7, 6-16 this year. I think they'll be fighting for a chance to make a bowl, in my opinion.
That's accurate. Yeah.
So let's look at threes. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say I got another team, and I can't believe I'm not talking about them, because they're my 4th SEC team to get into the playoff, and that's Missouri. You cannot overlook that game, that team. We have to go on the road to play them too, which, remember, last time we played them there, we almost got beat.
Yeah.
And I feel like we had a much better team than them that year. But Missouri is a much better team than they were that year this year, I believe. Much better team than last year, I think, too.
Yeah. Well, this year, the good thing is we don't get Missouri this year. So we don't get Missouri at all this year.
Are you sure?
Yeah. We don't play Missouri this year. But I will tell you that if we had a Missouri to that schedule, we would definitely have – I think we have the hardest schedule in the country, and we add Missouri to it. There's no doubt we have the hardest schedule in the country. I know Missouri plays Alabama this year, but I definitely agree. Well, there's no conferences this year. There's no East and West, so they kind of skirted. Missouri has one of the easiest schedules there is this year. So if Drink doesn't get it this year or next year, Drink don't get it. So, but last mailbag question. What do you think, Fish? So two-part question. One strength and one weakness from this 2024 team coming out this year. And how is this team this year, you think, going to be different than the last 2 national championship teams? So first off, let's do the strengths and weaknesses. What do you think is our biggest strength this year? What do you think is our biggest weakness?
I'm going to take a layup on this one because I oofed so bad just a second ago.
No, you're good.
Carson Beck definitely is the strength, is our biggest strength. Coming back, he's proven, we know what we're going to get from him. Hopefully we're going to get more from him because he's going to have more options to spread the ball out to. We lost Bowers and McConkey, but McConkey was hurt. Bowers was hurt. Bowers wasn't at 100% a few games this year. So actually, as far as productivity goes, I think we've got more this year than we had last year. And that's going to help him out a lot. And he's going to have more, like I said, ETN coming out of the backfield. Delp is poised to have a breakout season this year. And if he doesn't, we got 2 other tight ends right behind him that we're going to see a lot of playing time. Our receivers, Colby Young, inside the 20 is going to be a problem. I guarantee it. And, and Arian Smith, if he can get some stickum on his hands, that's an outside threat. That man made some plays. But, he's got all these drops, but we don't beat OSU without him. We don't beat Ohio State without him making those plays in that game. So, I think Beck is the strength.
You're thinking the arm of Carson Beck is our strength this year.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What do you think about it? What jumps out as a weakness? What is something this year that's going to possibly bite us in the long run?
Unproven secondary.
Yeah.
Our corners. you know, it's they're good. They're athletes. We don't know what we're going to get from them, you know. And attrition, I think, is maybe going to be a big factor this year. I hope, you know, it's a factor every year. But last year we had a lot of key injuries, you know, and not having McConkey, you know, or Bowers for the SEC championship was just, I mean, he wasn't 100%, you know, like, so, you know, that's, I don't know. Hopefully we don't have to deal with anything like that this year. Injuries are a big problem.
Yeah. So I'm going to go on a whim, and I'm going to start with the secondary first as the weakness, because I agree with you. But I will say this: what is very intriguing about that being a weakness of ours is this: it's only a weakness right now because I have not seen it solidified and what it's going to be. Because we saw some good things happen in the secondary versus a good Carson Beck. I don't know if you remember Carson Beck's G-Day stats, but he was having to put the ball in some very tight windows, which tells me a couple of things. I think we've improved. I think Dalen Everett has improved a little bit. I think Humphreys is incredibly long. He's very lengthy, very athletic. I think Joel Aguero reminds me a little bit. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and remind you of a name. He's not as tall as this guy, but do you remember this name, Greg Blue?
Yeah.
Greg Blue was a guy who was not very flashy as far as hands. He wasn't very you didn't always see him around to play. But what you did see was he was very, very important in the run game. He would put a hat on you in the run game, and he was always going to be there when you needed him in coverage. And it wasn't necessarily going to be a turnover. It was just going to be something that needed to happen that breaks up the play or causes or disrupts things in the secondary. So I look at Aguero and I like what he brings to the table with Malachi, and the truth around Bolden is I'm hearing it's the truth. I'm hearing he was a sponge. He learned a lot in the off season. I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting good reps in the secondary. I know he's going to be relied on on the kick return team. He's going to be relied on a lot in special teams. And you may see him as a couple of wrinkles and twists. I'm not putting anything above Mike Bobo. I'm hearing he's got all sorts of wrinkles they want to throw at defenses, and so who knows? But I do know that Kirby is a pretty straightforward recruiter, and KJ was told when he was recruited that he definitely he was being considered for both sides of the ball as he played both sides of the ball at Buford. So when that's being said, that doesn't always mean he's going to be, he's going to be in there every play, but it will mean that he's going to see the field in some trick type situations or some stuff where they want to get him the ball. So even though I say weakness, I agree with you, but I do think it's got it's got the most upside. I want to see that secondary with Malachi Starks in it. I love what I'm seeing with CJ Allen. He's another set of hands in that. I mean, like you said, to see what the plays he made in G-Day as a middle linebacker, like it was almost like having another star or another like dime threat in there at middle linebacker. So very intriguing. And I think on the offense, I think our strength this year, crazily enough, is going to be a healthy running back room. I think it kind of adds to what you're saying. I think Carson last year did the damage he did, and nobody really ever was threatened by a run game. And I think this year, when you look at a Bruiser and Rod Robinson, you still have not seen what Branson is going to bring to the table, what and how he brings to the table, and we've seen what Trevor Etienne is going to do. I think a healthy running back room could be a strength this year for us because it's going to open up a lot of things that Carson can do. And last year he had to do it when not every play did they think they were going to run the ball. And I think that's a little bit advantageous this year to think, man, they got a stable back there running backs. You got to think they're going to give the ball to these guys,
But Bobo likes to smash.
Yeah, 40-50% of the game. They want to be 50-50, but so we're on the same page as far as that. Let's move on though. Close the night out. We're going to close the night out with this: SEC toughest places to play. Little fun thing to do before we finish up the night. Top 5. These are my top 5, and I have some honorable mentions in there. Now these are within the last 5 years. This is not like all time, because I know
that's important to remember.
some of these stadiums are, all time might be a little bit different. And some of these in the last 5 years dropped, and some of these in the 5 years moved. But let's do honorable mention first. I'll let you figure out, Fish, where you have yours at as well. Let's see if we even collided on a couple of these. So honorable mention, I have Tennessee as one of my honorable mentions. I think Neyland Stadium is as tough as ever sometimes, especially night games at Neyland. It's a big old stadium, seats well over 111,000, something like that. With the stands they roll in for the Alabama game, more like 120,000. But I think Neyland is as tough in the past 5 years to play as ever, even though you can look back and be like, okay, well, how many did they win a lot of games in Neyland Stadium? In the last 5 years, I definitely am telling you that nobody, beyond the next team that I'm going to name that's unproven, and the 5 teams we're going to name, I don't think is in there. And then my other honorable mention, because we don't know much about them, but we can only suggest this is going to be an incredibly tough place to play, is Texas. I think playing in Texas is going to be tough. I think that place seats a pretty good amount of people. There's going to be a lot of cowboy hats, a lot of boots, and could very well be a rivalry for Georgia. Kind of, I don't know, maybe similar to what Alabama has been the last few years. So they're my honorable mentions. Let's hop in at 5. See if you agree with this one or not. The last 5 years, I still think at 5, Florida and the Swamp is still an incredibly hard place to play at night. Agree or disagree, Fish? At 5.
Flip-flop Tennessee and Florida.
Okay.
For me. I think
so you
Neyland.
think Florida's lost enough to where they're not really that hard to play?
You let Georgia Southern come in there and beat you. Kentucky got their first win in Gainesville recently. I think that happened within the last 5 years. I don't think it's a very scary place to play anymore. But I think Neyland. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say to little piggyback on that. The only reason I had Florida over Tennessee is because Tennessee always has a hard time with Florida every year. That's the only reason I have them above. That's the only reason. I agree with you. In my opinion, going into Tennessee the last 5 years, I've worried more about that than I've worried. Well, we don't go to the Swamp, but I've worried more about that game than I've worried about, Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But that's the only reason.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with you. I think Neyland is loud. I think their fans are incredibly hung on themselves.
Yeah, they are.
Checkerboard the entire place. So I got that at 5. Coming into 4, I got Texas A&M. We have not. We have not played them. We played them at home. I was at that game. Expected more, but Kyle Field, man, that's a place. That's a big bad place, man. Seats a lot of people. Once again, up there in the 100,000 range. But Kyle Field for me, man, with the band and the all the the cheerleader things and like the cheering, like the orchestrated cheers they do, man. That's some crazy stuff, man. Do you agree or disagree with that 4 spot?
I like watching games at Kyle Field. I love big games there, and it's what you say, like over 100,000, and they're always loud. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter who's their coach. They always show up. Like, it's always a hard place to go in and play. I think they're sitting right there at 4. I think that's a good call.
Yeah. 3, I will tell you, 5 years before this 5 years, this team would have been number 1 in my opinion. But this team in the last 5 years, for me, Death Valley, LSU is just a tough place to play. A day game in LSU, it's like 108 degrees. I think the people in Baton Rouge aren't drunk yet, so they're even more pissed off during the day. and you get them at night, and they are drunk, and it's still like hot. It's still only 10 degrees cooler, and so it's loud. The
They don't lose
Tiger
night games in Death Valley.
Eye of the Tiger in Death Valley, man. Like, it just, I don't know, man. It just scares the poop out of you, man. I don't know what it is. You agree or disagree with this?
100% agree.
I also would say, it dropped for me because of LSU's last 5 years, but also dropped for me because I don't think that, I just think when you look at coaches the last 5 years for, and I'm drawing a brain fart here. LSU's coach, come on, Fish.
Ed Orgeron.
No. Before that, that's a good one. Ed
Les
Orgeron.
Miles.
Who?
Les Miles.
Les Miles, man. The Mad Hatter. The Mad Hatter.
Eating grass on the sideline.
That was an added to that environment, man, because the Mad Hatter, you just never know what he was thinking. Orgeron, man, I don't know, man. I can't go back and tell you, man. Maybe it was because he previously sold Hummers on the side.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
You want a
Sorry.
Hummer? You want a Hummer? I want a Hummer. We all want a Hummer. I think that was most intimidating. But I got a shoe at 3, man. Coming in at 2, it's Bryant Denny, man. It's Alabama. I think Alabama is still a tough place to play. I think you bring in things like Sweet Home Alabama. You look at Dixieland Delight. You look at,
which is a song about Tennessee, which is hilarious.
There you go. You just look at the pageantry going on in Alabama. You look at Nick Saban running out of the tunnel. You look at the Crimson Tide, those crimson uniforms with the crimson helmets. There's just a lot of pageantry going on there. It can be very intimidating. The crowd's always going to be on. They played a lot of night games in the past 5 years, and that's why I have them there.
Yeah.
Is because night games in Bryant Denny. And I would say the only way I would say day games that would hurt a little more than night games, in my opinion, would be at LSU, because it's like 110 degrees, man, in Death Valley, and you feel like you're at the core of the earth. Like, it's crazy. That's why they call it Death Valley, right?
It's like the bayou sitting right on top of the equator.
Yeah, man, you're out there sweating to death. There's like flies. You got I'm telling you, man, those guys are ticked off because they couldn't drink for 8 more hours and get really ready for the game. So that makes it even worse. Makes it even worse. I'll never forget, man. I told a story by a guy who's a UGA Redcoat, man, who played the bottom bass drum, the 5th bass drum, man, and they were marching in to the Georgia LSU game, and he was in the very back of the entire march-in line, right? And he said he was getting beer cans thrown at him. People were throwing beer cans 100 miles an hour at his bass drum head, dude. Just wailing at him, dude. They were like calling him names. They were chunking. They were throwing beer. Like, it was bad, dude. Like, some of the worst fans and some of the. I think that's why it makes it so intimidating. Like I said, in the last 5 years, it's 3rd for me, but previous 5 years before that, it's probably number 1. And to me, an honorable mention that's not there, that's 5 years ago was definitely on here, was Jordan Hare. I think Jordan Hare is maybe a very close honorable mention for me. It's hard to play in Jordan Hare.
That's definitely one of my honorable mentions.
Yeah. And then number 1 in the last 5 years, you can't leave these guys out right now. I mean, they've lost 1 game in 2 years in Athens. And that's Georgia. I think Georgia has not only become an environment where the team is making it hard for other teams to play in, but I think the fans, I don't know if the last few years, I was at Georgia, Tennessee 2 years ago. Stetson Bennett called me against Tennessee, broke the decibel record at that game. I could not talk after that game, and I could not hear after that game. It was so loud. And if you weren't participating, man, people looked at you like you were stupid. Like, so you need to be yelling, bro. And it was tough to play in there. And it's beginning to be, to the student section is becoming more and more. I mean, they're there, man. They're there early, and it is
Follow
a long
the Spike
line.
Squad on Twitter.
Yeah, Spike Squad, man. Follow the Spike
Follow
Squad.
them on Twitter, man. They're awesome. They are awesome. Instagram, whatever they got, I follow them. I love them. They're awesome. They're always there. That's become one of my favorite things about watching our home games is them. And they travel too.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, but most of them do travel. They travel with the team. That's great.
Yeah. Well, Fish, solid show tonight, man. Right at a power hour tonight. Talked about a lot of things. We'll be able to follow this for the next few weeks. Interesting to follow the Jaden Rashada story to see what happens in the next few weeks with Billy Napier. Does he even make it to the sideline? Are we too far out for them to be like, maybe we, I don't know. Florida's in a pickle, man, because if they are behind the scenes being pressed to get rid of Billy Napier, they're really trying to go, we've got a very tough schedule this year. We're not even prepared, in my opinion, for what's coming our way with Billy Napier. Better yet, without. It's definitely an intriguing story. Definitely cool to look at. Toughest stadiums to play in as we enter into the 2024 season. I looked at looked at kickoff times, and so exciting stuff. Any final thoughts tonight, Fish?
Just can't wait, buddy. 100 days, not 102 days, not 101 days. Plus, you know what I was thinking about the kickoff thing? I was thinking the game is called the Chick-fil-A kickoff. I get it's supposed to be the first game. It's supposed to kick off the day or the weekend, so.
Whatever you need to do to solidify that 12 o'clock.
I'm just saying. You're sitting here talking, and I'm just sitting here mulling that over in my head. Like, because that really bothers me for some reason. I am a salty dog fan, and I hate noon kickoffs. Because we always get them, man. It doesn't really matter who we're playing. I'm surprised Georgia-Bama isn't at noon, to be honest with you.
That's true. It's true, man. It was Oregon last year. That was a good game, man. That was the Lad McConkey coming out party. You knew what was.
Yes, it was.
And I don't want to go back, but I agree. But I would agree with what you're saying too earlier. It's very, very intriguing to hear you say that about consistency of how much we had Lad last year and how much we had Brock last year and how healthy we were. How much we had Kendall Milton, how much we had Dejon. It's very intriguing to see that our depth this year. I think we have more depth, and I think we have more consistency in who Carson is going to be able to throw to. And there were some people that stepped up last year, but let's just be honest. By the end of the year, we were really asking ourselves, I don't think – Lad's not healthy against Alabama. Brock's not healthy against Alabama.
Exactly.
There had some offensive linemen that weren't healthy. Defense wasn't healthy. There were some definite issues there.
Attrition was a big deal last year for us, and we still almost went and repeated on them, man. So
yeah, I agree.
A lot to look forward to this year for sure.
I agree, man. Well, hey guys, make sure you remember to follow us on YouTube, Dogs Down South on YouTube, as well as TikTok, Dogs Down South. Facebook, obviously, there's a Dogs Down South page. Go follow us on there where you can catch the live stream on both YouTube and Facebook, although we prefer Facebook. So go follow. If you do not get a chance to hit this live, 24 hours from now, it'll be on Apple Podcasts, so you can listen to it on your ride in. It was up a little late last week. Apple Podcasts was giving a lot of people problems last week. So last week's episode is up, so go check it out. You have me and Adam and Bobby Riles who went with us tonight, who talked about some key factors. Bobby. Yeah, man. Talked about NCAA 25 coming out very soon. We're closer to that. Got some sneak peeks of that. So, but yeah, go follow. Your support is hugely needed. Cannot wait till we're predicting some SEC games. We are looking at spreads, and we're looking at, hopefully what we can be celebrating from week to week, but also getting ready from week to week in every game that Georgia plays. So for myself, for Fish, for Bobby Riles, who wasn't with us tonight, thanks for joining, and so long, everyone. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.